Let's turn our attention to the big question, I think, at the moment for the government and for the Prime Minister as he plans his first meeting with Donald Trump in the next fortnight. It's the demand by Pete Hegseth and the Pentagon and the Trump administration for Australia to up our spending in defence to 3.5% of GDP. It comes at a very important time, Stephen, diplomatically, as the Prime Minister is preparing for that visit to the G7 in Canada next week.
Well, I would think that the top priority is to engage the President over the tariff issues. And you've seen he's just doubled the tariff on steel and aluminium again. And Australia's economic interests, as well as ultimately America's, are harmed by these decisions. The markets know it. Sensible economists know it. Even at times, Elon Musk has expressed views on this in terms of what he thinks of the trade advisors. So I would think this is a high priority. If Donald Trump, who's becoming famous for being referred to as Taco, Trump always chickens out, then him demanding 3.5%, I mean, he's not in a position to demand what level of defence spending Australia, a sovereign nation, is to do. We'll happily engage in a conversation about AUKUS, happily engage in a conversation about submarine bases or submarines being able to base themselves out of Australia. We've got Marines on the Northern Shore. We have a number of highly sensitive bases in Australia, joint facilities, which provide incredibly important information. Donald Trump and Hegseth have no concept of how much Australia contribute, as well as the level of defence.
I noted that Kevin Rudd was there alongside Richard Marles for that Hegseth meeting, and important because he's the one who's trying to help the government navigate these rocky waters ahead of the G7 meeting, Michael Kroger. But it's not without risk, not just on the tariff front, but just on the optics front. We've seen what happened with the South African leader and the Ukrainian president as well. They're not shy of having a crack at friends and foe alike.
Well, KG, you couldn't have anyone better than Kevin Rudd there negotiating on behalf of our country, given his extraordinary praise over the years for the US president, for the Republican Party. He's absolutely the right man at this time to be negotiating. What a disastrous appointment, and what a disaster he's turned out to be. All this nonsense about how hard he works. Look, a lot of people work hard. Tradespeople work hard. Nurses work hard. It's how effective you work. And this bloke's got no credibility at all in Washington. He's the worst possible appointment you could have made. No, he's not helping whatsoever. I think from Albanese's point of view, he'd be better to have a meeting on the sides, which was not, photographed too much and not a formal sit down. It'd be much better to have something informal and going to the White House for exactly the reasons you've stated. There's any number of ways that a formal White House office meeting could turn into a catastrophe for Albanese in our country for all the reasons we know. So I would have thought a brief meeting on the sides would be much better optics than getting a whack in the Oval Office, because Trump could make an absolute mess of Albanese if he went there, I think.
Do you think the Prime Minister's feeling comfortable about dealing with Donald Trump, Stephen?
Yeah, look, I don't think the PM will have any difficulties dealing with Donald Trump. I think actually Michael has given some wise advice there. I mean, Trump calls these press conferences in the Oval Office to humiliate other world leaders. He did it actually to the King of Jordan. This is just after he wanted to turn Gaza Strip into the casino spot of the Mediterranean. He humiliated the King of Jordan. He humiliated Zelensky, or attempted to humiliate Zelensky. And then he just perpetrated a string of lies to the South African Prime Minister. I mean, this bloke has no sense of decency. So I think Michael's advice is wise, and that the Prime Minister should meet on the sides and not fall for the sucker punch now that Trump's engaged with all world leaders to try and get them into the Oval Office, use the stature of the Oval Office to then perpetrate. Now, like that last one with the Prime Minister of South Africa, Like, he actually perpetrated lies. You know, he puts up photos, not even taken in South Africa. There are a roadside memorial and pretends they're a graveyard. I mean, this is a bloke that's increasingly losing it. So Michael's advice is absolutely right.
You and Michael both fired up today. I love it. The straight talking panel of the week. And Michael, but I know you've had a crack at Kevin Rudd, which is, it's what you're well within your rights to do it. And I don't think you're, in sort of casual parlance, I don't think you're Robinson Crusoe. You're not the only one accused of having a crack at Kevin Rudd. But really, when you look at the president, it's hard to imagine any diplomat doing much better.
Really? I think Andrew Pecker would have done better.
Absolutely, Michael. Come on, be serious. You're trying to humiliate the Canadians. It doesn't matter what their ambassador says. He's humiliating Europe. It doesn't matter what their ambassadors say. He's after Japan and Korea. Every ally he's got. It doesn't matter who their ambassador is. He's on, exporting his MAGA dogma to the rest of the world. And it doesn't matter who the ambassador is. I think it's disappointing, Michael, you continue not back Team Australia.
I can't name a single ambassador of any of the 200 countries in the world who have diplomatic representation in Washington. I can't name a single one who has been more critical of Donald Trump than Kevin Rudd. You just picture a White House meeting with J.D. Vance sitting there, because he's a bit of a bother boy, and Rudd will be in the meeting, standing up behind the couch. Just imagine Vance saying to Rudd, talking across Albanese and Trump, aren't you the bloke that said that the president's a threat to democracy and deranged and a lunatic, et cetera,
which is true.
They could say to Albanese, weren't you just re-elected partly because you said how shocking Donald Trump was? Aren't you the country
and you got smashed because you sucked up to Donald
defence
Trump.
spending?
I mean, the single biggest issue overhanging that election was your party's relationship with Donald Trump. He spent 3 months saying he's the greatest leader in the world. And then, unfortunately, Donald destroyed...
Peter doesn't know him. We're talking about Kevin Rudd. Encouraging position was,
He was singing songs about him back in November.
Rudd is the worst possible appointment there.
Get on Team Australia.
You should have had Stephen. They would have been better having you or Stephen Loosley, Michael Eason, Mary Eason, someone in the centre right of the Labor Party in the Kim Beazley mould who could smooth the waters.
Stephen Conroy would have been a great one.
Over there to Washington.
No, I back you in with that.
Going well.
Conroy would have been a wonderful appointment. We can all agree on that one.
But I'm not famous
Michael,
for my
Stephen. No, well, you don't always need it, do you, in that role, to be honest. I think you need some straight talking. We always get it with you two, and I love it. Thanks. We'll see you next week.